Nightingale has a lot to offer outside of its shared world survival gameplay, as it seeks to create a Victorian gaslight fictional story where fairies and magic have changed the history of mankind. In this new history lived people like Ada Lovelace, and Shakespeare's poems and plays reflected, perhaps unknowingly, real and possible events. That's why the puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream is in Nightingale after all. This new Victorian-era game focuses on beings known as Fae, who have influenced and changed the course of human history. Prior to the events of the game, fairies traveled to the human world and taught them magic, their powers causing humanity to worship them. However, as humanity learned magic and began to think of themselves as equals to fairies, she left humanity behind and returned to her realms, taking most of her magic with her. Humanity, especially in the city of Nightingale, has used technology, research, and exploration to reclaim some of it, with people assuming the role of realmwalkers to travel beyond. However, when an event called the Pale scatters humanity across the realms, they must embark on a journey back to Nightingale, and they will encounter many fairies along the way. Game Rant recently attended a presentation from developer Inflexion Games, interviewing CEO Aaron Flynn, production manager Lee Summers, and art director and head of audio Neil Thompson. The Fae and their magic are central to the considerations behind the Victorian gaslight genre, which Thompson explained as opposed to steampunk, which is more tech-focused. The gas lamp fantasy is more imbued with magic. Technology in our game is obviously one thing, but the ability of humans to interact with fairies is through magic, through learning and their use of technology to harness those powers, he said. Mankind doesn't know much about the Fae, but the Fae aren't gods. They are magical beings created by the ancients, who later organized themselves into one of two courts based on certain characteristics, the Summer Court and the Winter Court. In keeping with the genre, the developers showed us concept art for these courtyards, in which the fairies are painted like in a painting from the Victorian era. These courts are presided over by fairy princesses, lords and ladies, and everyone outside of a court is considered a Ronin. Fairies were tied to mankind for centuries, if not more, before they left, and players will find that out in Nightingale. Why, however, has yet to be explained. This means players face fairies in battle, even though fairies aren't inherently evil creatures. They are sometimes very mysterious, elusive, and difficult to read, with the same capacity for good and evil inherent in every human being. However, during Nightingale Early Access and beyond, players will encounter various Fae archetypes, including assassins and Fae commanders, all of whom stand around 8 to 8 feet tall. At the orders of the fairies stand the bound, creatures created by these magical beings who blindly serve them. Described as imitators of humanity, they are compared to the Uruk-hai in The Lord of the Rings. Some of these creatures are more fantastical than others, while others border on horror, but all unique to the type of gas lamp fantasy that the developers are trying to create. And while there's an ongoing narrative that players will explore in terms of the town, fairies, pales and so on, it's the interactions with NPCs, fairies and other players that will ultimately define the story in the game. While that certainly means Inflexion Games has a lot to juggle between different realms, fairies, alternate history, their own creations and more, they all come together nicely. The Victorian era helps bring this even further to the fore, as CEO Flynn said. Even the world still had some mystery, right? Not everything has been discovered, not everything has been knowable with just a few clicks on a device you carry with you. So we created that, and I think we crave that kind of mystery in our lives. We can empathize with characters discovering things and encountering things in ways that we can't much anymore. Because of this setting, the expectations of the genre and the different elements, it seems difficult to balance everything, but it seems to work well thanks to the way everything fits together. According to Thompson, I think we're making sure players feel immersed in the world of Nightingale. They understand that there is a fantasy world, that magic exists, and that they can really play a role in it, but they still have an understanding of the fundamentals of what survival crafting means and their expectations of the moment. In an instant, Nightingale will be coming to PC in early access in the first half of 2023. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and support my channel.